First of all, Richard, good to see you. Good morning to you. On the front page of the Oz today, some interesting data. Newspoll suggests that Daniel Andrews is a whole lot more popular than maybe people outside of Victoria anyway might have thought.
Yeah, so today's Newspoll shows that, if anything, Daniel Andrews' approval ratings and the approval of his handling of the coronavirus crisis have actually increased. He's about 62% in our current poll today. He was about 57 a month ago. Now, it's interesting to think about what this means. I mean, the Australian's Victoria editor, Damon Johnston, said that this shows that Victorians see this still as a health crisis, not as a political crisis. They're not looking at it through a political lens, which is helping Daniel Andrews. But number two, I think there is a slight sense of optimism starting to creep in Victoria. Obviously, we are seeing the numbers go down quite dramatically. You know, we're now at about 14, 11. Hopefully, we'll be at the fives in the next week or two. And then Daniel Andrews has provided a roadmap out. Now, it is a slow roadmap. It is a roadmap that business and the federal government hate. But it is some sort of a roadmap. So compared to the last Newspoll, when it really seemed that the numbers were astronomical and Daniel Andrews seemed to be floundering and not having a plan and not answering questions, the fact that he's now filled a few of the gaps in appears to have helped his performance. Yeah,
and I'm sure the business community or those who are struggling would disagree with that. But yeah, as the poll points out, the majority of Victoria supports him. And it's interesting too because, I mean, we've spoken about this before. Up in Queensland, Anastasia Palaszczuk, she's backed by the polls that suggest her tough stance is supported by the majority of the public. And over in the West, Mark McGowan's got the same issue. So, I mean, that goes to show that the premiers with the toughest stance are backed by, the majority of the people. But I guess, people in New South Wales would support what Gladys Berejiklian is doing, and she's kind of throwing everything open as best she can too. So it's a different matter.
Well, this is one of the interesting things. I mean, first of all, it's interesting that the issues of borders is now a boom for Labour politicians after all these years. But number two, it is interesting to see that in countries and states that have very hard coronavirus stances, voters seem to be prioritising health and safety over economic concerns. We're seeing that obviously with the falling ratings of Boris Johnson and Donald Trump in the US and UK, despite the fact that they wanted to open up, although Boris Johnson's going the other way now. And while as the people who have had the hardest lockdowns and the biggest economic shocks, people like Jacinda Ardern, whose economy's gone down the toilet, but she's had some success until recently of controlling the virus. She's been astronomically popular, so it seems that people are putting their health over their wallets. But it'd be interesting to see what that's like at election time. These things can change. Yeah,
they can, and they can change quickly. Also, there's an interesting piece today, the Western Sydney Airport. So the land was bought 10 times what it should have been. So it was worth, $3 million, and it was bought for $30 million. So a pretty big oversight here.
Huge oversight. In fact, the Auditor General, Brett here, who has been quite the thorn in the side of the government this year after sports rorts and now with this Western Sydney Airport debacle, actually called this unethical. He was scathing of the way this has been handled. Now, this all happened when Paul Fletcher was Urban Infrastructure Minister. He's now obviously Communications Minister. The current Urban Infrastructure Minister, Alan Tudge, today has pointed out that the report, the ANAO report, does not mention ministerial discretion. But there's a lot of questions that are going to be answered. This is obviously that the Perish family, very rich family, have donated quite a lot of money to the Liberal Party, although there's absolutely no suggestion that this is linked in any way. They have also donated to the Labour Party in the past. But the idea that a land worth $3 million all of a sudden is worth $30 million, I mean, it's extraordinary. And I think there are going to be a lot of questions about why exactly the price was pushed up this way. It's incredible.